Blood splattered across my face as the body hit the ground. I didn't feel the knife slip from my hand until it clattered on the cold concrete. My knees buckled, and I stumbled back, pressing myself against the alley wall, gasping for air. The world spun around me, the shadows twisting like silent witnesses, judging me for a crime I didn't commit. I didn't kill her, but my fingerprints were all over the weapon, and the blood, her blood, was dripping from my fingertips. Her eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the night sky, her mouth twisted in a frozen scream. The echo of her final breath still hung in the air, a faint whisper swallowed by the city's relentless hum. I wanted to look away, but her gaze held me captive. It was as if she was accusing me from the grave. How did it come to this? How did I end up here, standing over her lifeless body, feeling the weight of a murder that wasn't mine? Her name was Ammara. We were friends once. Not the kind who shared secrets or dreams, but the kind who knew each other's demons. She trusted me, and now she was dead because of it. A flicker of movement caught my attention. I whipped around, heart pounding, expecting to see a witness, a savior, a monster. But the alley was empty. Just shadows, broken bottles, and the faint stench of decay. Yet I knew I wasn't alone. Someone had been here. Someone who wanted her dead. And me to take the fall. The sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder, closing in. Panic surged through me. I had minutes, seconds maybe, before they'd find me here, drenched in her blood, surrounded by damning evidence. I couldn't explain this. No one would believe me. Not after everything that had happened. Not with my history, not with my connection to her. I heard the echo of footsteps, deliberate and heavy, retreating into the night. I darted forward, peering around the corner, but whoever was there was already gone. A shadow slipping into the maze of the city, disappearing as if they never existed. The sirens were getting closer. I could feel the vibrations under my feet, the hum of engines, the chatter of radios. I had to move. I had to get out of here before they saw me, before they arrested me, before they decided I was the killer. I looked down at Ammara one last time. She deserved justice. She deserved the truth. But that wasn't going to happen if I was locked up for her murder. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to scream, to cry, to collapse beside her and beg for forgiveness, for surviving, for running, for being the last one to see her alive. Then, I turned and ran, the alley spinning around me, the shadows chasing me as I fled the scene of a crime I didn't commit. My name is Zara. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to lose Ammara. But life doesn't care about intentions. It only cares about consequences. And right now, the consequences were chasing me through the labyrinth of alleys, my pulse thundering in my ears as I tried to escape the nightmare that had just begun. Ammara was everything I wasn't. Where I was reserved, she was bold. Where I hesitated, she leaped. People were drawn to her light, her energy, her fearless spirit. We were opposites in every way, but that's what made our friendship work. She completed me, and I grounded her. We met in college, thrown together by some cruel twist of fate during freshman orientation. I was the shy, bookish girl who hid behind glasses and hoodies, keeping my head down, just trying to survive. She was the star, the girl everyone wanted to be or be with. She had a way of commanding attention without even trying, her laughter echoing through hallways, her confidence contagious. I didn't think she'd notice me, but she did. On the second day of orientation, I got lost trying to find the lecture hall. Panic clawed at my chest as I stumbled through corridors, my map crumpled in my sweaty hand. That's when she found me, leaning casually against a pillar, one eyebrow raised, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "You look like you could use a guide," she said, her voice warm, teasing. I stammered something incoherent, cheeks flushing red. She just laughed and looped her arm through mine, dragging me through the maze of classrooms like she'd been there her whole life. From that day on, we were inseparable. She broke down my sea. Walls dragged me out of my shell and showed me how to live, how to laugh, how to dream. We shared everything, our secrets, our fears, our hopes. I thought I knew everything about her. I thought she knew everything about me. But maybe I was wrong. The sirens grew closer and my legs burned as I kept running. The image of her body etched into my mind. I could still see her lying there, her golden hair soaked in blood, her face twisted in horror. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. Ammara wasn't supposed to die. Not like this. Not because of me. I turned a corner and ducked behind a dumpster, pressing my back against the cold metal, struggling to breathe quietly as the police cars raced by. Their lights flashed red and blue, painting the walls with neon shadows, illuminating the graffiti that warned of danger, of death, of betrayal. Ammara and I had seen that graffiti before. We used to explore the city at night, chasing adventure, chasing freedom. She'd pull me into alleys like this one, laughing as she twirled under the streetlights, daring the darkness to touch her. "Live a little, Zara," she'd say, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "What's the point of being safe if it means being boring?" But Ammara had secrets too. Darker ones she never shared with me. I'd seen glimpses of them, late-night phone calls, whispered conversations, lies that didn't quite add up. I never asked questions. I trusted her. I was her best friend. Maybe that's why she chose me. Why she called me tonight, begging me to meet her in that alley. Why she was so scared, so desperate. Why she said, "If anything happens to me, promise. You'll run. Promise me you won't look back." I thought she was being dramatic, that it was one of her wild games. She always loved to play the part of the damsel in distress, spinning tales of danger and deceit, thrilling in the fantasy of it all. I didn't know this time was real. The sirens faded, but my fear didn't. I slid down the wall, hugging my knees to my chest, feeling the weight of her death crushing me. Guilt choked me, guilt and anger and confusion. Who did this to her? Why? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could hear was her voice echoing in my head. Her last words. Her last plea. "Run, Zara, don't look back." So I ran. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't escape the truth. Ammara was dead, and I was the only one who knew why. I didn't stop running until my legs gave out. My breath came in short, desperate gasps as I collapsed onto a damp park bench, my heart still hammering in my chest. The city stretched before me, indifferent to the blood on my hands, the terror in my eyes. Ammara was dead, and the world kept moving like nothing had happened. I wiped my hands on my jeans, but the stains wouldn't go away. My skin felt tainted, as if her death had seeped into my bones. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the vibration jolting me back to reality. I hesitated before pulling it out. My screen was cracked, a single spiderweb of fractures spreading across the glass, just like my life. Unknown caller. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled as I answered. A distorted voice whispered, "You should have run faster." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. My hands clenched into fists. Someone knew. Someone was watching. My pulse pounded as I scanned the park, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The streetlights flickered, casting eerie patterns on the pavement. A couple walked past me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I had to think. Who would do this? Who would want Ammara dead? I forced myself to go through the night step by step. She called me. She was scared. She told me to meet her in the alley, and then she was dead before she could tell me anything. Had she been trying to warn me? Had I walked straight into a setup? I gritted my teeth. This wasn't just about you, Mara, anymore. It was about me. Someone wanted to frame me, and the worst part was working. I could already hear the story playing out. Zara Khan, Ammara's best friend, was found at the scene of the crime. Her fingerprints were on the weapon. She fled before the police arrived. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't just a suspect. I was the perfect suspect. I needed help. Someone who would believe me. Someone who could make sense of this. I scrolled through my contacts, my mind racing. Ammara had secrets. Maybe one of them had finally caught up to her. Then I saw his name, Rayhan. My stomach twisted. He was the last person I wanted to call, but he was also the only person who might have answers. Rayhan had always been close to Ammara. Too close. He was her on-again, off-again disaster, the boy who made her laugh 1 minute and cry the next. He was charming, reckless, dangerous in ways I could never define. But Ammara trusted him, or at least she used to. I hesitated before hitting dial. He picked up on the second ring. Zara. His voice was groggy, laced with irritation. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Rayhan. My voice cracked. "Ammara's dead." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "What?" "They killed her," I whispered. "And they're trying to blame me." Another pause. Then his voice dropped, cold and sharp. "Where are you?" I glanced around. "Near the old park." "I'm coming." The line went dead. I exhaled shakily. I didn't know if calling Rayhan was the right move. But I had no other options. I had to find out who killed Ammara before they finished what they started, and before the cops found me first. "You said I sat on the park bench," arms wrapped around myself, my whole body trembling. The chill in the high air seeped into my skin, but I wasn't sure if it was the cold or the fear freezing me from the inside. Ammara was gone. It felt unreal. Just a few hours ago she was alive, breathing, talking, scared. She needed my help, and I failed her. A lump formed in my throat. The image of her lifeless body was burned into my mind. her vacant eyes staring up at the sky, accusing me. I squeezed. My eyes shut, trying to block it out, but it was no use. Every time I blinked, I saw her. Every time I inhaled, I smelled the blood. I was supposed to protect her. I was supposed to be her friend. My chest tightened. Panic clawed at my throat. My hands fisted in my lap, fingernails digging into my skin, but the pain wasn't enough to ground me. The world around me blurred, the distant hum of traffic fading into static. I was losing control. I pressed my fingers to my temples, forcing myself to focus. Think, Zara. Think, who sent that call? Who wanted me to run? Who killed Ammara? I had no answers, only fear. The streetlights flickered again, casting long shadows across the pavement. A paranoia crept up my spine, an unbearable weight pressing down on me. Someone was watching. I could feel it. I scanned the area, trying not to look obvious. A man in a hood walked past, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. A couple laughed near the bus stop, oblivious to my terror. A woman stood near a lamppost, scrolling through her phone. Normal. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. Nothing was normal anymore. I flinched as a car sped by, headlights flashing across my face. Was it them? Were they coming back? I sucked. In a breath, my heart pounding against my ribs. The feeling of being hunted gnawed at me, and for the first time I truly understood what it meant to be prey. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, behind me. I went rigid. My breath hitched. Didn't turn. I couldn't. I was too afraid of what I might see. The footsteps stopped. Silence. A moment stretched between life and death, so fragile I could feel it cracking. Then, Zara, I gasped, spinning around so fast I nearly fell off the bench. Rehan. His face was shadowed under the streetlights. His dark eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. His hoodie was zipped up to his neck, his hands in his pockets, his stance tense. For a second, I couldn't move. Then, my body betrayed me. Before I knew what I was doing, I grabbed his arm, gripping it tightly, my nails digging into the fabric of his sleeve. "She's gone, Rehan," I choked out. "Ammara is dead." His jaw clenched. "Tell me everything." I tried, I really did. But the words tangled in my throat. I was shaking, my breath uneven, my entire world slipping through my fingers. Rehan's expression hardened. He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm but not harsh. "You're freezing." "I'm not cold." My voice was barely above a whisper. He didn't argue. He just sat down beside me, too close, like he thought I'd disappear if he let go. For the first time since I found Ammara's body, I let myself feel the truth. I was alone. I was scared, and I had no idea what to do next. Rehan's grip on my wrist tightened. "Zara, look at me." I did. His eyes were searching, sharp, like he was trying to read the parts of my story I hadn't said yet. "I didn't kill her," I whispered. His jaw twitched. "I know." Something inside me cracked. "Then why does it feel like the whole world thinks I did?" Rehan didn't answer. He just stared past me, his brows knitting together like he was putting pieces of a puzzle together. Then he said something that sent a chill through me. Ammara called me too. My breath caught. What? He exhaled, rubbing his hands together. It was about an hour before she died. She was panicking, saying things that didn't make sense. She kept saying, "I messed up, I need to fix it before they find out." My throat tightened. Before they find out? I gripped the edge of the bench. Who was she talking about? Rehan shook his head. She wouldn't say, but she told me she was meeting someone dangerous. He paused, and she told you not to call you. His words knocked the breath out of me. What? She said she needed to handle it alone. He hesitated, then added, and she didn't want you involved. A fresh wave of nausea rolled through me. Ammara was in danger, and she didn't tell me. I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to steady my thoughts. This changed everything. Someone wanted her dead, but she knew it was coming. She was trying to stop it. What did she mess up, Rehan? I whispered. He hesitated, rubbing his face. There's something else. I tensed. What? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper. She left this for me. I stared at the paper, my pulse quickening. My hands trembled as I took it, unfolding it slowly. There were only 4 words written in Ammara's familiar handwriting. If I die, run. My stomach dropped. Rehan's voice was grim. She knew they were coming for her, and now they're coming. For you. I felt the weight of the message settle in my chest, pressing down like a vice. This wasn't just about Ammara's death. It was about something bigger. Something she knew. Something someone was willing to kill for. I forced myself to think. To put the pieces together. Ammara was scared. She called Rehan. She tried to meet someone. Someone who killed her. Then they framed me. My hands curled into fists. Whoever did this thought they got away with it. They thought I'd be too afraid to fight back. They were wrong. I lifted my gaze to Rehan, my fear hardening into something colder, sharper. We need to find out who did this. His expression darkened. And what happens when we do? I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of my next words. Then we stopped running. We found the address scribbled on the back of the note Ammara left for Rehan. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, hidden behind crumbling factories and overgrown weeds. It looked like a place where secrets came to die. My stomach twisted as we approached the building, the air heavy with the scent of rust and decay. The shadows seemed to stretch longer here, curling around corners like silent predators, waiting for us to step inside. Rehan gripped my shoulder. Are you sure about this? No, not even a little, but I was done running. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot of fear lodged in my throat. If they wanted me dead, they could have done it by now. He looked at me, his eyes darkening. They don't want you dead, Zara. They want you to suffer. The weight of his words hung between us, heavy and cold. But there was no turning back now. I'd made a promise to Ammara, to find out who did this. To make them pay. I tightened my grip on the rusted metal door handle, bracing myself before pulling it open. The door groaned, hinges protesting as we slipped inside. The warehouse was empty, silent, but the air was charged, humming with an energy that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I stepped forward, my footsteps echoing off the cracked concrete floor. Dust particles danced in the dim shafts of moonlight filtering through shattered windows. Rehan followed close behind, his body tense, eyes scanning the darkness. "This feels wrong," he muttered. "It's too quiet." He was right. Everything about this place screamed trap. But before I could voice my doubts, a voice echoed from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here, Zara." I froze. That voice. I knew that voice. A figure stepped into the light and my heart dropped to my stomach. Ammara. I staggered back, nearly colliding with Rehan. My vision blurred, my mind struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. "No. You're dead." She smiled, but it wasn't the warm, playful smile I remembered. It was cold. Calculating. "Dead?" Her laughter echoed off the walls, sharp and mocking. "You saw what I wanted you to see." I shook my head, panic rising in my chest. "I saw your body. I held you. You were dead. I felt your blood." Her eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. "Fake blood is a lot easier to get your hands on than you'd think." The ground shifted beneath me. Everything I thought I knew crumbled in an instant. "But why?" My voice broke. "Why would you do this? Why would you let me believe you were dead?" She took a step closer, her face half hidden in shadow. "Because I needed you to be afraid. I needed you to run, and I needed you to lead him here." Her gaze flicked to Rehan, and I felt my blood run cold. Rehan went rigid, his jaw clenched. "Ammara, what did you do?" Her smile widened, cruel and gleeful. "Did you really think you could betray me and get away with it?" Betrayal. The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I looked between them, confusion swirling in my mind. "What is she talking about?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Rehan's face paled, his eyes never leaving Ammara. I didn't think." She knew. Amara's laughter was cold, hollow. "Oh, I knew. I knew you were selling my secrets, feeding information to my enemies. You thought you were so clever, didn't you?" I stared at Rehan, my chest tightening. "You betrayed her?" He wouldn't look at me. His fists clenched at his sides. "It wasn't supposed to end like this," he said through gritted teeth. "I never wanted her dead. I was trying to protect her." Ammara's expression darkened. "You were trying to save yourself. But you should have known better, Rehan. No one betrays me and lives to tell the tale." She reached into her jacket, pulling out a gun, the metal gleaming under the moonlight. She pointed it at Rehan, her eyes cold and unyielding. My heart stopped. "No, Ammara, please, don't do this." She glanced at me, her face softening for just a moment. "I never wanted you involved, Zara, but you were always too loyal for your own good, too easy to manipulate." I took a step forward, desperation clawing at my throat. "You're my best friend. We were supposed to trust each other. We were supposed to protect each other." Ammara's eyes flickered, pain flashing across her face, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by icy determination. "You were supposed to be on my side." She turned back to Rehan, her grip tightening on the gun. "You ruined everything, Rehan. You made me weak, you made me vulnerable, and now I have to clean up your mess." Before I could move, before I could scream, she pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening, echoing through the warehouse. Rayhan's body jerked, his eyes widening in shock before he crumpled to the floor. I screamed. The world shattered around me. I fell to my knees beside him, my hands trembling as I pressed them against his wound, blood seeping through my fingers. No. No, 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 Rayhan. His eyes met mine, pain and regret swirling in their depths. He tried to speak, but only a broken whisper escaped. I'm sorry. Zara. His body went limp. I looked up at Ammara, tears streaming down my face. How could you? She watched me, her face emotionless, her eyes cold. This is the price of betrayal. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing as she disappeared into the shadows. I was alone, surrounded by death, and the friend I thought I knew was nothing but a lie. The sound of Ammara's footsteps faded, swallowed by the vast emptiness of the warehouse. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Rayhan's body was still warm, his blood pooling beneath him, soaking into my jeans. My hands trembled as I touched his face, hoping, praying that he'd blink, that he'd cough, that he'd do something. But he didn't. He was gone. Tears blurred my vision, hot and relentless. My throat burned from the screams I had no strength to let out. She killed him. She killed him like he was nothing. Ammara, my best friend, the girl I trusted, the girl who made me believe we were unbreakable. She had played me, used me, lied to, and I let her. I forced myself to pull away from Rayhan's lifeless form, my heart pounding in my ears. The warehouse walls closed in, suffocating me, whispering the truth I had ignored for too long. Ammara had always been dangerous. I just never thought she'd turn that danger on me. The weight of reality hit me like a freight train. I was still a fugitive. My fingerprints were on the murder weapon from before. The police would be hunting me, and now I had another dead body on my hands. I had to move. I staggered to my feet, my legs weak beneath me. I wiped my bloody hands on my jacket, knowing it was useless. Rayhan's blood was a stain I would never escape. I forced myself to think. Ammara isn't done. She had faked her own death, set me up and killed Rayhan without hesitation. But she wasn't just cleaning up loose ends. She was hiding something big, something worth killing for. I needed to know what it was. But first, I had to disappear. I took one last look at Rayhan, memorizing the face of the only person who had tried to help me. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'll make this right. Then I turned and ran. 2 weeks later, the city moved on like nothing had happened. The news covered Ammara's murder for 2 days before the next tragedy took its place. No one knew the truth. No one knew she was still out there. But I did, and I was going to find her. I changed everything. My hair, my clothes, the way I walked. I became a ghost, slipping through the cracks of the city, watching, waiting, tracking her. She thought she was untouchable, that she had won. But she underestimated me. Ammara had always been one step ahead. But for the first time I was following her. She wouldn't see me coming. And when I found her, I would make her pay.